Hey guys, Greg Mustreader here. Today, this is a kind of an experimental video. Recently, my younger brother George came to visit me here in Almaty, Kazakhstan, and we have played some blitz games, some of which were recorded. And let me show you some of those games. So here is the first one. George, just like myself, plays the French defense, and this is all theory. After bishop d3, he goes f6, which is a rarer move, but it still exists. By the way, the second game is just crazy. The first one is a normal game, quite good. I like the way I played, and George played also in a decent manner. But the second game, this is just craziness, so don't miss it. So here George has fallen into some deep thought, probably because he is not a very active chess player and doesn't know his theory. Neither do I, because f6 is not a common move, and I think it's not a good move. But he exchanges the pawns here, he takes, I take, and he cannot take, by the way, my pawn, because then he will lose. He takes with the knight, I take his knight, he takes with the queen, and bishop g6 check leads to a loss of a queen, so this pawn is untouchable here. And I have a nice position, I have a space domination, so the opening has played out in my favor. Here I start thinking for some time, I realize that I have some advantage and I want to exploit it. And a logical move, the first line of the computer, is developing my knight. He also plays quickly, he tends to get into time trouble in blitz, and we are playing blitz 3+2, 3 minutes per game each with 2 seconds increment after each move. Here I attack his queen, he has to do something about this, and then my knight will probably go to c5. This is the plan that I wanted to implement. I'm building on my advantage, and I'm a little bit better. He checks me, but I simply block. It's not a check, sorry guys, I have castled long ago. But he just retreats his queen. It is not a check. It would be, had my king been on e1. But still, I attack the queen with bishop b2, and he blocks with his bishop. And here, the best move would have been to jump with my knight to c5 immediately. But I decided to exchange the bishops first. I'm not a computer, so I make some inaccuracies in this game. Although, overall, the first game is pretty clean. The second one was not clean at all. It was crazy. My king was running all across the board, so don't miss the second game, but don't miss the attack that started in the first game. It is about to start. So obviously I'm recording this audio after the game's finished, so I know what awaits both of us. So my knight is finally on c5, a very nice active square. I want to take his bishop and deprive him of his castling rights. And it's not a fun idea for him, but there's not much he can do. He takes my bishop, and yes, actually I could have taken his knight first, but I decided to take his bishop, and now he has to lose the castling rights. He had some other ideas here, for example, queen a6, protecting his knight, but he didn't go for this, and now we have exchanged and his king is in the center, which is not a good thing. Of course, computer can defend this, but he's not a computer. And he's desperately trying to finish his development. The problem is that his knight has just entered the game. And here I sacrifice a pawn for an attack. If he takes the pawn, I attack his queen with my rook, and it gets nasty very fast. So practically speaking, this pawn sacrifice is very good, because I need to open lines to get to his king. That is the idea, and he doesn't want that to happen, so he slides his queen to a4. He probably wants to go to c2 to exchange the queens. Actually, in fact, he did this later on, I think, in the game. I'm recording this several days thereafter, so my memory is not ideal, but I think that's what he did. And here I'm thinking about how to attack him, how to deliver some horrible blow. I develop another rook and it gets added into the attack, and he tries to block. But now, after this f5 move, after the movement of the pawn, my knight can jump into g5, top engine move again, and I want to jump into f7 and then d6 in some variations. Anyways, my knight is very active, his knight is passive, and you can see his concentration on the space. George is a very good player, actually. I taught him to play chess, and he also is a very romantic attacking player. He also plays the King's Gambit. He plays practically the same openings as me, because he just learned using my books and my notes. So he tried to exchange the queens, but of course I don't allow it. I give him a check. Now I realize that he just blocks and nothing is working. So I decide I can repeat the position a couple of times. Anyways, it's going to be okay. So what to do? We are both trying to calculate variations. He repeats once, but I don't repeat the second time. I now find a good move, placing my queen on the a3 square, attacking his a7 pawn. And also this queen is on an important diagonal. Once the b4 pawn moves one step further to b5, my queen will be able to jump to d6 and deal some damage, heavy damage, I should say. So George realizes that, tries to activate his knight, but now my pawn moves one step further and it's getting nasty. He takes my pawn, but I check him on d6, and this is already losing for black. Here I take an important e6 pawn, the base of his pawn chain, and everything is collapsing. He desperately tries to go for some counterplay. And he does. He checks me with his knight, but actually any move here wins for white. I can just sidestep the check with my king, or I can do something even more spectacular. I can sacrifice the rook taking his knight, because my attack is deadly and he will be mated in several moves. I realize that. I calculate everything to double check, and I check him. Now knight takes pawn on f5 wins in 5 moves according to the computer, but I rush it and I don't find the immediate win, but still his position is collapsing. He tries to make some loft for the kings to escape, but I deliver a checkmate. Knight takes f5, checkmate. 1-0. I'm ahead, but wait for the second game, because it's going to be spectacular. One of the funniest games I've played. Okay, let's go. We start the second game. Again, we have some problem with, with the clock, but now it's been sorted out. And I also play the French defense, and he chooses the rare La Bourdonnais variation, played by the master of the past of the 19th century, La Bourdonnais from France. It's not the best way to play against the French, but George is a very creative player, and he likes unorthodox variations and orthodox solutions to openings, and he likes sacrificing. You will see that he was in a very good sacrificing mood in this game, because fireworks are about to start, guys. You are going to enjoy this. George is going to enjoy this. I am probably not going to enjoy this, but who knows? Who knows? Let me not spoil the result. He's calculating. I'm now looking at his face, and I'm realizing that all this time he was in a revenge mode. He wanted to destroy me. He wanted to destroy me badly, and he went into a deep think. So there are many ideas here for white, but none work immediately. In fact, black threatens to take the e5 pawn and have a commanding position in the center. So most rational players would do something about that, but not George. He's just activating his pieces. He wants to jump in with his knight, maybe to b5 in some variations, which could have been unpleasant. I take his pawn, and no, he doesn't take back. He advances with f5. That's my boy. Maybe it's not a good move according to the computer, but it's fun. I cannot take this pawn, because then he'll take my d5 pawn, and his attack will be menacing, but I have some good moves here. I can activate my knight, or I can develop my bishop 2e7, both are kind of fun. Maybe not fun, but fine. And here I choose in favor of the knight jumping to f6, which is a perfectly nice move. He takes, I take back. And I realize his idea is to jump with the knight to g5 after I take the pawn, attacking my bishop. And if the bishop drops back, for example, to g8, then he will check me with his bishop from h5, and that's unpleasant. I won't be able to block the check with my pawn, because then my knight on f6 will be unguarded. This is the problem. So I have to give up my light squared bishop, protecting it with my queen. Here I realize it, and I calculate either queen d7 or queen e7. Both look fine. I spent some time deciding which one to choose. Actually, bishop retreating to g8 is also fine, according to the computer. And after check, I can just retreat with my king to d8, but I didn't want to allow that, losing the castling rights. The computer is fearless, of course, but I fear George's attack. So yeah, I just protect the bishop with my queen. Now he can take it, of course, but there's no rush. He wants to open up some lines to attack me. Let me remind you that he has sacrificed one pawn. I have gladly taken it, and I now have a strategically winning position unless he checkmates me, because I have this impressive big black center, as they call it, and it's advancing, and those black pawns control practically all the vital squares in the center, so he needs to do something fast, and he knows it, and he's an attacking player. He's very creative. Can you guess the move that he made here? I wouldn't have guessed it, but George is a creative maestro. He sacrifices yet another pawn, b4, and I can take it both ways, with the knight and with the pawn. Actually, it's one of the top engine moves. Very surprising for me, and I didn't expect it. But he needs to open the lines, because he wants to attack me if I go long, if I castle long, which I will most likely do. He will attack me using those recently opened lines. Okay, I take another pawn. What can I do? If you are attacked, at least you should grab some material for this to be worth it. You should remember this rule if you're playing somebody who is attacking you. An alternative way is to counterattack and to find your counterplay, but here I don't see an immediate way to counterattack him. He is the one who is in the driver's seat. And now he jumps in with his knight, and there are various threats. For example, he is threatening to take my bishop, and if I take back with a queen, there is a fork, a knight fork, a royal fork to the king, the queen, and the rook, so I avoid that. I castle long. Now there will be a problem with his knight, because the knight doesn't have any squares to retreat. All the squares for the b5 knight, where it could potentially move, are either occupied or attacked by my pawns and pieces. So he cannot go to a3, c3, a7, c7, d6. None of this works. d4 also. So it's stranded. Probably George realizes that. But this doesn't discourage him from sacrificing, just sacrificing this knight for the sake of opening up some lines. And this is the correct practical approach, especially in blitz. You should not be too greedy with your material, with your pieces, with your pawns. You should sacrifice for attack, because your opponent in time trouble, under time pressure, will ultimately collapse. Maybe not, maybe you lose, but in most games I use this approach, I win against equal or even stronger opponents. So now the knight has been sacrificed, but the rook has entered via the 8th rank. This is a check, and my king has to move. And I move to c7, and now I think whether to take with the knight or the king. I cannot take with the queen because of a fork on e6. The queen has to protect the bishop. So I decide that taking with the king is better, because the knight should be closer to the center. And now he activates his bishop as if nothing happened, as if he's on par with me in terms of material. He is not. Make no mistake, I'm absolutely winning. I have an extra piece and a couple of pawns, but he is attacking. and anything can happen. Queen a1 is a great move. He wants to check me with his queen from a8. I realize that. I block, and now he retreats. He does not want to trade the queens because he's attacking. He wants to checkmate me, of course. Now he takes one pawn. I try to develop. I try to play fast here to put pressure in terms of the clock on him. Maybe I should have considered my moves a little bit faster, because here I make a blunder. I immediately realized that he could have taken my rook, but he didn't see that. So my my strategy is working. Now I'm trying to counterattack, but I cannot see the way forward. And I try to dislodge his bishop from b5. He exchanges, and now his queen finally starts checking me. And this is not pleasant. I realize that I cannot check him from f2 because the square is protected. And yeah, I have to avoid the checks. And it seems like his strategy of harassing my king is working just fine, because he has grabbed one pawn and he is starting a series of endless checks. And I don't want to draw, of course. I'm up a piece and I don't want to repeat the position, but he keeps harassing with his checks. Queen, rook. This will continue for some time, guys. So fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a fun ride. I try to escape. I'm desperately trying to figure out a way to escape with my king. Maybe I should move it forward and run to his position. But it's all risky. Of course I can repeat, and it's probably a sensible strategy in a serious game, but it's not a serious game, and I want to win desperately. I want to defeat my brother because he's lower rated than me, and he's not a professional chess player, and he doesn't spend as much time on chess, but he's very talented, and the checks are not stopping. Again, queen e5 check, and I can of course repeat, but then it will be a draw. So I try to run with the king, but then his rook is very angry and hungry, and his queen aids the rook, and I have to block with my knight, but he again takes another pawn, and already my position is not so good. I blunder another pawn with check, but I consolidate. For the time being, the checks have stopped, and I advance my pawns. And here I start to think that probably I should be able to stop all this nonsense pretty soon, but he's not stopping. He's finding more and more checks, checks from the back side. This is something I really don't like. And here it's already a draw, I think, according to the computer. And here he could have even won. Instead of rook a8, he should have gone queen a8. And there was a winning sequence of moves there, but we are both in time trouble, and we are both not finding the optimal solutions. It's a draw again now. It's a perpetual check, but I don't want to go for this, as again I said, and I march my king forward. He checks me again, but I try to run away. I try to run away, and here I could have gone to e4, even closer to his position, but I got too scared and I retreated, and again there are checks, and again he can make a draw by a perpetual check. But here I blunder. I realize that because rook a7 wins either my queen or my rook, and he's very happy. You can see his reaction. Yeah, and this is lights out. So his efforts have paid off here, and he's just mating me. Mating one. Fate queen takes checkmate. Painful. Thank you for watching, guys. This was a nice match, don't you think? Write it in the comments. Your feedback is welcomed.